The birthday was supposed to be a celebration, a quiet one, private guest list, no press, just close friends, soft jazz, catered soul food, and stories from a life that had stretched across stages, screens, and scandals the public had long forgotten. But the thing about turning 60, especially for someone like him, is that the truth doesn't ask for permission anymore. It just shows up. Martin stood at the edge of the patio, watching the skyline flicker under evening clouds. The laughter inside was real, but distant. His phone buzzed quietly in his pocket. He didn't look at it. He already knew what it was. The message had arrived that morning. A package, unmarked, no return address, wrapped in black linen, sealed with red wax. Inside, a VHS tape, not digital, not a download, a tape, and one sentence written in faded ink. It's time. He hadn't played it. Not yet. Not until tonight. Now, alone, in the quiet hum of a house filled with carefully curated memories, he fed the tape into a player that hadn't been used in over a decade. The screen flickered. Static. Then her voice. Soft. Familiar. Years younger. I told you I'd wait. But you never came back. The footage wasn't just old. It was forgotten. Clips from a hotel hallway. A dressing room. A night on set when cameras were off. But someone had left one rolling. He watched himself laugh. Then argue. Then cry. He didn't remember crying. He sat down. The next tape was labeled press. It was full of interviews, edited differently. Full versions. No cuts. Jokes he made that were meant to deflect. Awkward silences that, back then, no one noticed. The way his hand shook when a certain name was mentioned. For years, the public had created a version of Martin. Loud, funny, wild. But buried beneath it was someone else. A version few people ever got to meet. And fewer still were allowed to talk about. Until now. Because after the third tape ended, the screen stayed black. Then a voice, not his, spoke. A woman's voice. Tell them before they find out. Or someone else will. He paused the tape. He looked at his reflection in the dark screen. And for the first time in years, he didn't recognize the man staring back. He stood up slowly, the weight in his chest heavier than 60 years should allow. The silence in the room wasn't empty. It was thick, expectant, like something waiting to be released. The fourth tape wasn't labeled. He stared at it for a long time before sliding it in. This one didn't open with a voice. It opened with a sound, static, then a whisper, a crowd murmuring, then a sharp laugh. His. But it didn't sound right. It was younger, more erratic, almost desperate. The image was grainy. Backstage, early 90s, a man leaned in toward the camera. He wore sunglasses indoors. Two men stood behind him, arms crossed, quiet. Then Martin walked in a frame. Younger, electrified, moving fast. His eyes darted. "We doing this?" he said to someone off camera. Then something that had been edited out of every public archive came next. A conversation. Loud. Heated. He said names. Names no one ever connected before. One of them was still in power. Another was dead. The third had disappeared after a certain case was quietly settled. On the tape, his younger self leaned closer to the mic and whispered, "If this gets out, y'all better run." Cut. The screen went dark. Martin pressed pause. He suddenly remembered that night. He'd been high. He'd been scared. But he'd been honest. And someone had kept it all. The final tape was smaller, mini DV. He didn't have a player for it. But he knew someone who did. Across the city, an old friend answered on the first ring. "You got something?" the voice asked. Martin didn't speak. "Is it about the house?" the friend asked again, quieter now. "Is it about that summer?" Martin hung up. Yes, it was about that summer. The one no one ever talks about. The one that nearly ended him. Not in tabloids. Not in ratings. In reality. He packed the tapes into a plain box and locked the door behind him. The party was still going. The jokes. The champagne. The cake with 60 shaped in gold foil. But Martin wasn't going back in. He wasn't that version anymore. Someone had saved the truth. And now, he had to decide if the world was ready to hear it. The drive was silent. No music, no calls. Just the sound of old air pushing through vents and tires rolling over wet pavement. He didn't rush. This wasn't the kind of delivery you hurry. It wasn't revenge. It wasn't fame. It was confession. He arrived at a small, gray building tucked behind a row of mechanic shops. Anonymous. Unremarkable. The kind of place you'd miss unless you were looking for it. Inside, a man in a hoodie sat hunched over a table surrounded by monitors and open hard drives. He didn't look up. "You brought it?" the man asked. Martin didn't respond. He placed the box on the table. The man opened it carefully, reverently. He recognized the labels. His hand slowed when he saw the mini DV. "You know, if I digitize this," the man said, "it's out there. No takebacks." Martin nodded. The man hesitated. "People gonna hate you for it. Some will call you a liar. Some will call you a hero." Martin didn't blink. "Let them." Behind them, the screen came to life as the first tape rolled. It was footage no one had ever seen. Not paparazzi. Not press. Raw hotel surveillance from a year that was supposed to be sealed in rehab records and studio denials. Martin was pacing, talking to someone not in frame. Angry. But it wasn't the anger of Star melting down. It was the anger of a man who had seen too much. Of a man trying to get out. "I did what they asked," he whispered to someone. "Now they want silence." He paused, then added, "You know what he did? You were there." The technician froze the screen. "Who's he talking about?" he asked. Martin didn't answer. Instead, he reached into his coat and pulled out a folded envelope. On it, a list. Not typed. Handwritten. With dates. Properties. Flight numbers. First names only. But the initials were unmistakable. The man looked up slowly. This is the real story, isn't it?" Martin nodded. "Not just mine. All of ours." There was a beat. Then the man slid the tapes into the tray, connected the cables, and began to digitize them. Quietly, precisely. Outside, the rain picked up. People inside the party were now wondering where he had gone. A text pinged his phone. "They're asking for you. Are you okay?" He turned the phone over and didn't answer. The screen now showed the second tape. Footage of a call in a dressing room. One-sided audio. Martin nodding as a voice crackled through the receiver. A well-known voice. Asking him to cover something up. Promising him protection. Hinting at others who had already complied. The man at the monitor turned. "Are you sure you want to do this?" Martin's answer was low. "Final. I already did." The screen kept rolling, spooling out fragments of a life the world had watched, but never really seen. On the third tape, Martin sat alone in a recording booth. The time code on the screen read 1997. He was supposed to be recording voiceovers for a sitcom promo, but the red light wasn't on. This wasn't official. The camera had been left running, maybe by accident, maybe not. He leaned forward toward the mic, stared at the soundproof glass like he was speaking to someone behind it. "I'm tired of pretending," he said softly. His voice wasn't a performance. It was broken. Real. "They think if I keep laughing, I'll forget what I've seen. But the shows don't protect you. The money doesn't protect you. Not from them. Not from what we all know." The technician at the desk froze it again. "That's not acting." Martin said nothing. Just looked down at the fourth tape. It was unlabeled. No year. No case. Just blank. When they played it, the screen opened to an interior shot. Dark. Velvet drapes pulled across windows. Candlelight flickering. A private house. Someone was talking off camera. Then a figure entered the room. It wasn't Martin. It was someone bigger. Older. Richer. A name no one would ever say in jest. He was smiling. Calm. Saying nothing controversial. Nothing illegal. Just enough to imply power. Just enough to make it clear why the others stayed silent. And then, in the final moments of the tape, the camera shifted, just slightly, revealing a second man sitting off to the side. Eyes wide. Silent. Watching. Martin. The tech looked up at him. This is bad," he said. Martin exhaled. "This is the truth." They sat in silence for a long moment, the low hum of the transfer machine filling the space. Then the screen flickered. The system had auto-tagged faces. One was labeled correctly. The others, not yet. Martin pulled out a thumb drive from his pocket. "This has the rest," he said. "Receipts, contracts, texts, voicemails, backup copies. I made sure." The tech connected it. A file tree appeared. Dozens of folders, labeled with code names, dates, initials. It wasn't just one person. It wasn't just one incident. It was years. Martin leaned back in the chair, rubbing his hands together like they were stained with something he couldn't wash off. For decades, they made him wear the mask. The wild man. The clown. The meltdown. The redemption arc. But underneath, he'd been documenting everything. A knock came to the door. The technician froze. Looked at Martin, expecting anyone. Martin shook his head once. The knock came again. Harder. 3 times. Outside, a black car idled at the curb. Inside, the final transfer was at 97%. Almost there. The knock turned into pounding. Controlled, deliberate, not frantic, but too firm to be friendly. The technician muted the audio feed and flicked the monitor off. The room dropped into a dull, humming darkness. Martin stood slowly, shoulders stiff, not from fear, but from memory. This wasn't new. This was old. This was the same knock he heard back when a different story almost broke. The knock that had come the night after he said too much at a rap party. The knock that followed a call from someone powerful who said, "You've been warned once." He moved to the door, but didn't open it. He looked through the peephole. Nothing. Just rain, steam, and the slow blink of a car's parking lights. The technician whispered, "You want me to back everything up?" Martin didn't answer. He turned away from the door, checked the screen. 99%. Outside, the pounding stopped. Silence returned like a hell breath. Then, the door handle turned, once. It didn't open, but it had been tried. Martin walked over, locked the deadbolt himself. Not that it mattered. If they wanted in, they'd come in. But they weren't coming to talk. He looked at the tech. Split the files. Upload half. Store the rest. To where? Martin took out another slip of paper. Handwritten. 2 servers. One in Iceland. One under a dummy label registered through a faith-based nonprofit. He had been planning this for years. The tech nodded. "You really thought they'd come?" Martin nodded. "They always do." The files completed. The tech hit upload. The screen changed. Transfer successful. It was done. Now it wasn't just in his hands. It wasn't just a tape, or a memory, or a whispered name. It was evidence. Backed. Synced. Released. Across the country, phones would vibrate in pockets within minutes. Certain inboxes would receive encrypted messages they didn't want to see. Old lawyers would make new calls. Publicists would wake up sweating. But the story wasn't going to be stopped this time. Because Martin didn't just expose himself. He exposed everyone who built the cage around him. The technician unplugged the equipment with shaking hands. Martin grabbed the box of tapes. Burn them. Now. Now. The man nodded and reached for the lighter fluid. Martin turned one last time to the door. The car outside was gone, but another had pulled up. Inside it, someone was watching. Not a threat. An ally. A woman. She raised her phone, pressed record, then said one sentence to her audience. "It's time you all knew the truth." The flame caught quickly. The tapes hissed and cracked as they curled inward. The black magnetic ribbon melting like secrets finally allowed to die. The room filled with the acrid smell of plastic and memory. The technician stood back, arms crossed, eyes wide. Not with fear, but with awe. Martin didn't watch them burn. He turned toward the door again, the woman in the car, still holding her phone steady. She wasn't hiding. She wanted to be seen. She wanted it to be known that someone was standing beside him now. He opened the door and stepped into the rain. The world outside was quieter than he expected. No sirens, no shouting, just the patter of droplets against pavement and the hum of a city unaware it was about to change. The woman stepped out her car. She was older now, like him, but her eyes were sharp. "You waited too long," she said. "I had to survive," he replied. She nodded. "So did we." Martin handed her a second drive. Smaller, labeled only with the letter M. Her hands trembled as she took it. "Do you know what this means?" she asked. "I do," he said. "It means I don't have to carry alone." They didn't hug. They didn't smile. They just stood there for a long moment. Two people who'd lived through what no press release would ever dare describe. Then her phone buzzed. She looked down. It had started. The first video had hit the cloud. 26,000 views in under 5 minutes. The title read, "This is what they hid behind the laughter." More were coming. In LA, a former executive slammed his laptop shut and called a number he hadn't dialed in years. The voice that answered said only, "It's out, isn't it?" In Atlanta, a studio was suddenly empty. Meetings canceled. Phones ringing to no answer. And in a quiet corner of Beverly Hills, a man who hadn't been seen publicly in nearly a year leaned forward on his leather couch, watching the upload. He whispered one word under his breath. "Martin." Because they all knew. He had kept the receipts. And now, he had nothing left to lose. The morning headlines didn't mention his name. Yet. They talked about a leaked archive, a whistleblower actor, a digitized collection of unaired footage tied, to mid-90s television royalty. But they didn't say it outright. Not until the second clip dropped. This one wasn't filmed in secret. It wasn't a grainy backstage angle or a compromised security feed. It was Martin, present day, sitting in a wooden chair, staring directly into the camera. No lights, no stylists, no edit. Just him. "I laughed to survive," he said. "I played the fool so I wouldn't lose my mind. But you all need to understand, some of US didn't come back whole." He paused, breathing deep, fighting off a tear. "This isn't just my story. It's our story. And they're still out there, running studios, controlling scripts, handing out forgiveness to the ones who obeyed and silence to the ones who didn't." His eyes didn't blink. Not anymore. The video hit 1 million views in under an hour. By noon, major outlets were naming him directly. Talk shows danced around the topic with phrases like industry reckoning, comedy shadow, and a beloved actor's buried truth. But some hosts, some who had stood next to him, laughed with him, benefited from the same silence, refused to comment at all. Inside one particular studio, a man in a tailored suit watched the footage in complete stillness. His jaw flexed once. His fingers hovered over a keyboard, then pulled away. No response would be good enough. No denial believable. Because the public didn't want spin. They wanted names. They wanted to know why a man who brought joy to millions had nearly vanished for a decade, only to return now with a fire that no network could contain. Martin's phone buzzed. He didn't flinch. Another celebrity. A big one. Someone who disappeared in the early 2000s after one strange outburst and a quiet settlement. "I'm ready," the message said. Another buzz. "Thank you for going first." The flood was coming. But this time, it wasn't just one man carrying it. It was everyone who had waited too long. The woman with the drive had just uploaded another file. An email from 2004. Internal memo. Mark's sensitive talent handling. Listing Martin by name, and a second actor whose career mysteriously ended after a canceled sitcom pilot. Twitter caught it instantly. The world had laughed at Martin. Now the world was listening. But this time, he wasn't joking.